The Paul Leslie Interviews.
Aloha to a musical legend, Michael McDonald. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks, Paul. Great to talk to you.
All right, we're talking about an album you have called Blue Obsession. This album was released on Mailboat Records, and it's a bit of a turn from some of your other music, some of the old sound, but some new styles as well. Tell us about how you got inspired to take on this album.
Well, it's a record that I did when I first moved to Nashville, and coming down here, of course, I was just kind of finding my way around, and I had a couple of songs I had written in California that I brought with me. I thought might be a good start for a record. One tune called "Someday You Will," and "No Love to Be Found" was another one, and a song titled "Obsession Blues." And we actually cut the demo for two of them here in Nashville. Actually wrote them here in Nashville, but I had just moved here then, and in a basement studio down in on Music Row called the Love Shack. It was just myself, Billy Livesey on organ, and Bernie Chervelli on guitar, and we cut them with a drum machine, you know. So we kind of proceeded from there over to a little studio called the Dugout, and again on Music Row, and wound up at the Bennett House in Franklin. And it seemed like we were always recording in the houses, you know, old houses around Nashville. And then, you know, the record just kind of developed from there, and at that time we were doing it for Warner Brothers, but in the course of things, I was dropped from Warner's, and they were nice enough to let me take the record with me, which I thought was you know, extremely generous of them. And, but you know, we'd had a long relationship, and they were, like I said, you know, very nice about that. And I took the record with me and released it on Ramp Records, which is a label that I started with Chris Polonis and Jeff Bridges in Santa Barbara, out of Santa Barbara. And we did really only two projects officially that I know of anyway. One being Jeff's album, Be Here Soon, which was an album that I produced with Chris Polonis and Jeff. And then it was just a great deal of fun. I mean, we had a great time making that record. And it was such a different kind of eccentric and kind of delightfully quirky record. You know, the lyrics were really humorous and funny, and it was just, you know, such a different kind of project, and real fresh, a breath of fresh air for me at that point in my life and stuff. And then my record, they had a place to kind of come out of, and so we released Blue Obsession also on that label, just about the same time. And between the two records, we made enough money to stay afloat. You know, we remained solvent, kind of made our money back, you know, more or less. And even made a little money on the deal. It wasn't anything great, and neither one of the records sold all that much, but they sold enough to kind of pay our costs and production costs on both of them. And so it was a good deal, you know. We felt like we were a success, even though, you know, we were just a small fledgling label, and still are, you know. But it was a great home, I think, in some ways for Blue Obsession, because it allowed me to change the record somewhat in ways that I probably wouldn't have been allowed to had I remained on a major label.
There's another song on the album that had some lyrics that really struck me, and that's All I Need. All I need is just one answer I'm looking for. Could you tell us a little bit about that song?
Yeah, I wrote that song with Tommy Sims, and at the time we wrote that song, it was kind of a melody that Tommy had, I think, and I was pretty much assigned to the kind of the lyric, you know, myself, and then, you know, we always kind of switch hit, you know, melody lyric with, you know, both the musicians and stuff. But that was primarily my job on that tune, was a lyric, you know, to fit the melody. You can't give me anything else. Just give me a little bit of hope that as long as I got a little bit of that, I can get through whatever's coming next, you know. And that's kind of what the song was about.
Speaking of hope, there's a song we played on the last episode, and that was Someday You Will. And that was a song I just thought was so inspiring. I really like the song. So tell us a little bit about that song.
Well, that song's great for me personally. It's a great example of something I've come to find out about songs. Just being a songwriter is over the years, you write a song, and you're always amazed at how people interpret those songs. You think you know what the song means, because you wrote it about, and you usually have something specific in mind. But then you'll hear people come up to you and go, that song really got me through this or that, or I really love that song, because for me it means personally, or I took it to mean this, and many times it's so much different than really what you had in mind, and yet sometimes some of the interpretations people come up with are actually better than I originally wrote the song about. And in this case, this song has that kind of like duality in a sense. I wrote it for a friend of mine who had a stroke, a guy I grew up with and played with for many years, Chuck Sabatino. In fact, we played together up until he passed, until he had the stroke and then passed. But he had a terrible stroke. He was just completely debilitating. I love this guy to death. And I wrote the song for him, thinking, somehow this is all going to make sense. Somehow you're going to rise out of the phoenix out of the ashes with this thing. Somehow you're going to be back, with some grasp of your life, and I just believed, being who he was, that it wasn't possible for that not to happen for him, of all people. As it turns out, really, I think the song was more a song for us, and not him. He passed away shortly after that, and on his birthday. And at the time he left, he was very much at peace with it. He did reach that place where he accepted what would happen to him, and he was aware enough of the people around him and to feel a really profound love for everyone, that even beyond what he was capable of before, and that would be saying something, because he was always, if he was anything, he was a very loving guy, and so Chuck passed on, and I realized that this song is really more for us now, to understand why this happened, and why this happened to someone like him.
You mentioned earlier you were talking about Jeff Bridges and the CD that you helped him produce along with Chris Polonis.
Uh-huh.
One of his friends, John Goodwin, I've recently started liking his music. Tell us a little bit about John.
Johnny's great. He's a great songwriter, really. I write with him a bit, and he's just a wonderful guy anyway. I mean, I don't know, very few people have made me laugh as hard as John Goodwin. He's just really one of those guys. He's got a very sardonic kind of sense of humor, and he's, very focused on the irony of everything around him. And when he presents it in the way that he does, it's pretty funny usually, But just a great guy, really a sweetheart. But I agree with you. Probably one of the best, not so well-known songwriters out there, and it's written some great stuff. He wrote a couple of the songs on Jeff's record. "She Lay Her Whip Down" was one of his tunes.
My partner, Jeff Pike, he had a question. The song predates me, but it was one of his favorite Doobie Brothers songs that he wanted to ask about. He just wanted to know kind of about the inspiration, and that was "It Keeps You Running."
The song is just basically about how our emotional experiences kind of propel us into the future, either in a good way or a bad way, and how so many of our phobias that kind of propel us or motivate us in one direction or another, make us who we are, so to speak, or from experiences that we might have had, and most profoundly, I think, for all of us, is experiences in love, or coming to love someone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a lover, whether it's And depending on what you get back, or how you perceive what it is you get back, can have a profound effect on who you become, you know, and how you perceive that very thing the rest of your life, you know, and that's what the song's about.
This last question is something I ask every guest, but it's also one of my favorite questions to ask before the guest says goodbye. And that question is, since this show goes out all over the world, what would you like to say to the world?
I would like to say to the world that you know, I guess I would just like to say that, you know, we're all different religions, we're all different cultures. We don't understand each other very well, obviously, you know. But one thing that we can all agree on, that we should be able to agree on, is that we all believe universally that there is one God, and He made us all. It doesn't matter whether we agree on who God is or what God should be called. But we do fundamentally agree that there is one God, and He made all of us, you know. So, based on that belief, on that understanding that we can maybe have with each other, I think we can also come to the conclusion fairly safely that this God, however you understand Him to be, it's very likely He prefers that we live in peace together, you know, more than anything else. You know, I can't imagine any God worth worshiping, you know, that worth, you know, believing in, that would actually want us to be cruel as we can be to each other. I think that's just our rationalization of God, and to use Him to our own ends and to our own penchant for inhumanity, you know, and being not who He intended us to be, you know. Where our own self-will runs riot, we have a bad habit of, you know, deeming that God's will, you know, ordained by God. In most cases, that's pretty much a lot of bullshit, you know. Basically, any God worth worshiping, worth really believing in, I feel pretty safe in assuming that He wants us to live in peace together more than anything else we could do, and He wants us to be good to each other, and He wants us to pray for peace, and that's what I would say.
Mr. McDonald, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Well, thank you so much.